The moment detonation fades and sky fires burn out, the apocalypse arrives with a profound and terrifying stillness. This event is not a simple ending to our story, but rather a permanent and total transformation. Concepts we use to define reality, like national borders and political alliances, dissolve into something entirely unrecognizable. The first sunrise after a global conflict will not look like a movie scene. It feels hollow.
A heavy and suffocating silence signals not the arrival of peace, but rather the onset of shock.
In most major cities, the skylines might remain intact, and the roads will certainly still be there.
Citizens wake up in beds, yet the complex machinery of modern life grinds to a complete halt.
Governments will suddenly go dark, and smartphones will be nothing more than pieces of useless black glass. Complex infrastructure we ignored because it always worked will be shattered or vanished completely from existence.
Society does not collapse because of bombs, but because the fragile web of logistics has been severed.
Even nations untouched by direct strikes will feel foundations give way as international commerce begins to freeze.
Fuel will turn into a legend, while currency instantly becomes nothing more than piles of worthless paper.
Countries that once bickered over trade tariffs will suddenly be negotiating for their very own continued existence.
Every nation, regardless of military might or geographic isolation, will confront the exact same terrifying new reality.
How do you reconstruct a society when the global system that supported it has
completely evaporated today?
Some states will splinter instantly, while massive nations find internal cohesion under threat greater than their borders.
Regional authorities may supersede federal ones as new boundaries begin to form deeply within the old map.
Tightly organized nations like Japan and Switzerland will likely retreat into strict and highly regimented national isolation.
Yet even they will encounter resource deficits that no amount of stockpiling can ever fix for them.
Regions far removed from primary targets will suddenly rise to unprecedented prominence in this new world order. Their value comes not from fleets, but from possession of arable soil, fresh water, and deep isolation.
This is the true portrait of Earth in the hush following the start of World War III. It is a fractured planet where every society must answer a brutal riddle regarding their future survival.
Who are we when systems that fed us are gone and the geography is reshaped by desperation?
Global influence is no longer measured by armies, but by access to water, crops, and defensible terrain. Superpowers that absorb the initial blows will see their centralized control shatter first before anything else breaks.
The United States won't cease to exist, but Washington's grip will loosen significantly over the coming months. Coastal metropolises trapped with millions of people and zero local food production will face immediate human catastrophe.
In contrast, the interior heartlands, rich with farmland, will become the new centers of gravity for survival. Russia faces a contraction, driven not by enemy troops, but by its own impossible and vast geography. Without fuel and comms, vast areas like Siberia will drift out of Moscow's orbit into total silence.
You cannot govern a continent-sized state with silence, so local warlords rise, driven by pure practicality.
China confronts a unique nightmare because its modern existence is built on flow of imports and exports.
If oceans close, its staggering population transforms from an asset into a massive liability and the state manages.
National unity hinges on whether the central part can transmit orders and food faster than hysteria spreads.
Meanwhile, unexpected sanctuaries of stability like Brazil and New Zealand will emerge stronger than old military titans. Europe won't vanish, but it will condense as nations merge into survival clusters for lack of resources. The map of this new era is carved by the feet of refugees rather than by cartographers. Governments don't vanish after the apocalypse. They evolve into regimes that grasp the hard truth of stability. The first administrations to collapse will be those reliant on top-down hierarchies and instant data transfer networks.
Leaders accustomed to absolute control find their hands empty because you cannot command a starving, desperate populace.
In the vacuum, local leadership becomes the skeleton of society as mayors and tribal elders assume command.
Citizens pledge loyalty to whoever keeps the water taps running and the bread lines moving for them. Political dogma dies, and logistics rave supreme as authority shrinks back to the distance of a handshake.
Global bodies like the UN or NATO fade into obscurity because member states lack bandwidth to care.
Eventually, a new governance model appears, called resource feudalism, where power is derived from monopoly over wells.
The social contract is stripped to its bones, meaning we work together to live or die alone.
Gradually, a peculiar stability takes root, not of peace treaties, but the hard stability of sheer adaptation. The world following a global war will not snap back to the convenient rhythms of the past. The global economy crashes into something ancient, while the currency of existence shifts from finance to pure function.
Banks shudder because money is a hallucination, and currencies like the dollar rely on faith in systems.
When the machine stops, value reverts to tangible goods, so food is money and gasoline is money.
Antibiotics are money, while blankets, axes, heirloom seeds, and batteries become the new portfolio assets for survival.
Daily existence changes in intimate ways, as the switches on the wall do nothing for the darkness.
The web is dead. The fridge is a cupboard, and smartphones are merely weak flashlights at night.
Without a functioning grid, every single simple task becomes a physical ordeal. Heating requires chopping wood. Cooking requires building a fire, while travel requires stamina. The world expands, measured by daily walking.
Communities will coalesce around survival as neighbors who never exchanged a word share watch duties and tools.
Polarization, once a luxury of the internet, is replaced by pragmatism. Collaborators last longer than the hoarders.
Hobbies of the old world like gardening, mechanics, stitching, and carpentry become life-saving professions for all.
In the urban ruins, scarcity hits with brutal speed because cities are artificial ecosystems requiring constant inputs.
Without the trucks and tankers, the shelves are bare in 48 hours, causing masses to surge outward. Some will flee while others stay and scavenge, yet out in rural territories life decelerates but steadies.
Farms become fortresses of wealth, and small towns evolve into the new hubs of barter and justice.
Education and labor merge into one as children study by working. Survival is the only subject matter.
The great modern divide, representing the gap between intellectual labor and manual labor, vanishes instantly for everyone.
Knowledge reverts to oral tradition passed from master to apprentice, yet humanity does not become purely primal.
We still congregate to tell stories and make music.
When the economy of money dies, the economy of connection remains, as wealth that cannot be inflated.
The civilization that climbs out of the ashes is not a restoration of yesterday, but something new.
It is a new organism constructed from trauma, memory, and necessity, where nations endure but look unrecognizable. Communities persist, but they are tighter, while the human race goes on with a deeply humbled perspective. Borders eventually solidify following the logic of rivers and mountain ranges, not the failed ambitions of politicians. Countries will be smaller, obsessed with self-reliance, and uninterested in projecting power across the vast oceans. Imperialism becomes obsolete when the cost of travel is too high, so technology goes dormant, not extinct. Machines sit in quiet storage, data centers gather dust, and solar arrays stand like skeletons of age.
The infrastructure of the vanished world remains as a monument to a giant that no longer breathes.
In time, fragments of it will be jump-started not for grand projects, but for specific, careful needs.
Restoration replaces growth, while culture gains a depth that the pre-war era of distraction had destroyed. Tribes protect their language and skills, as art shifts focus to become raw, simple, and grounded reality.
History isn't just read in textbooks anymore, it is read in the cratered landscapes of the earth.
A new generation arises that never saw the internet or supermarkets, and they do not mourn them.
They build their own reality as trade routes reopen and sailboats traverse oceans long before oil tankers.
Marketplaces sprout local, then regional, as a global order slowly reemerges, hesitant, decentralized, and founded on need.
Future is a negotiation, not a sprint, and humanity learns the lesson, however painfully it comes.
Survival is not guaranteed by how many missiles you have, but by stability, cooperation, and strict discipline. The scars of what was lost serve as a permanent warning, etched into the earth itself today.
The world after World War III is not empty, and it is not finished. It is altered.
In many ways, it is smaller, but in others, it is actually more intensely and deeply human.
The myth of our invincibility is broken, and with it, the arrogance of infinite expansion is gone. What is left is something quieter and more intentional, as a species learns to live within boundaries.
It is a world remembering what truly counts when the noise stops and the silence takes over.
It moves forward not because it is forced to, but because life finds a way to begin.
If you want to explore more scenarios of the future, please like this video and subscribe today.